right, folks, we are back here on WLTH 1370M. That is 92.7 in the FM dial if you're nasty. Right, Mike? Just me and you, brother. It is 6:52 in the PM here on Friday, May the 22nd, 2026. The future is here. The future is now. Oh, yeah, today is May the 22nd, my father's birthday. So big happy to the old man. Hopefully, I'll be just as spry as you when I'm 98 years old. But, folks, we are back here on Straight Out of the Cannon with me, Scott Cannon. And as you heard in the intro, that was Thomas Massie, representative from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, who lost his Kentucky primary to Trump-backed challenger Ed Galrine, who is a retired Navy SEAL, and he actually got like 55% of the vote in the 4th Congressional District of Kentucky. Now, for months, Donald Trump has repeatedly targeted Massie in recent months for challenging his authority on 2 issues: the release of the Epstein files and pushing to curtail Trump's war in Iran. But the subtext to both of these issues is Israel. The more we learn, the more we see that Jeffrey Epstein was more than likely an operative for Israel who probably was used by the state of Israel to acquire compromat, what they used to call in the Soviet Union compromat, which is compromising evidence on rich and powerful people. And so we have some of the richest, most powerful people in the world who spent time with Jeffrey Epstein. We know he was doing arms deals on behalf of Israel. I mean, this dude was everywhere. This dude was in the middle of Africa. He was in the middle of the Middle East. Him and his people were doing everything with everybody, while at the same time he was running what looks to be one of the most prolific sex trafficking rings in modern human history. And Thomas Massie was one of the few Republicans, along with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was willing to go against Trump on the Epstein files. And look what that got him. Look what that got him. He's gone. And Marjorie Taylor Greene basically did not want to go through the same thing. And so she just voluntarily quit Congress. And so we're sort of in a very dangerous position now because MAGA is becoming more insular. It's becoming more insular. It's becoming more dogmatic, more about the true believers versus everybody else. Even other Republicans are being sacrificed at the altar of Trumpism, which isn't really an ideology. Trump's not an ideologue. He's not Mussolini. He's not Hitler. He doesn't have any real beliefs except for me. He is his own beliefs. Like he is just a supreme narcissist and megalomaniac who decides what MAGA is on a whim. Because if MAGA actually was a thing and America First actually was a thing, there'd be nobody more favored by MAGA than somebody like Thomas Massie, who votes with Donald Trump 91% of the time. 91% of the time. And even he's not MAGA enough. Meanwhile, you have never Trumpers like Lindsey Graham, who was a hardcore never Trumper in 2016. People forget how much the Republican Party was split over Trump before his first term and in his first term. You have people who literally hate Trump, who Trump sides with solely because they are willing to bend the knee and prostrate themselves to praise Trump. And so MAGA is in a very dangerous place. People always ask, what's the difference between a cult and a religion, right? Like people say MAGA is a religion. No, MAGA is a cult now. You could have argued MAGA was a religion earlier. They've gone beyond religion to cult. And the difference between a religion and a cult is a religion has diverse thought within their religion, okay? I'm a Christian. Me and other Christians, we disagree about stuff all the time. We can disagree about scripture. We can disagree about what makes a real Christian, what's Christian like, what Christ would do, what Christ did. We can disagree on all kinds of things. You have Baptists, you have Catholics, you have, Episcopalians, you have Methodists, you have, just straight up Unitarians. You have all kinds of different Christians, right? Presbyterians. You got all kinds of different types of Christians who can argue and have discourse about what real Christianity is. Same thing with Islam. You have Sunnis, you have Shiites, you have, Wahhabists. You have all kinds of people who have all kinds of different views of what Islam is, Judaism, Buddhism, whatever. A cult is when there is no room for debate any longer, and you must do what the cult leader says. And if you don't do what the cult leader says, there are consequences. That is when you become a cult. There is no room for independent thought within the cult. And in the past, like I said, when MAGA was still just kind of a religion, I gave a lot of people in MAGA, including people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, credit. Like, well, at least they will actually disagree with Trump on certain things. A lot of times, a lot of Republicans would go further in criticizing Trump and the Republicans than Democrats would Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. I go, hey, at least the Republicans can, Ted Cruz or whoever could criticize Trump or could run against Trump. In the Democrats, they wouldn't even let you run against Joe Biden, even though 70% of the Democratic Party didn't even want Joe Biden to be the nominee in 2024. And so there were some times when MAGA was showing independence within the movement. That is gone now. They have gone from religion, where there's a sort of unifying force, but everybody has a different idea of what, how to serve that unifying force, to now either do 100% of what Donald Trump says, or you're done. You're done. And much of the power behind this is AIPAC, the America-Israel Public Affairs Committee. They funneled millions of dollars into the race, making it the most expensive House primary in history. They sent the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who may or may not have violated the Hatch Act by campaigning for Gal Ryan, but as we talked about in the last few weeks, since when does the Trump administration care about laws or constitutionality, any of that crap? But maybe the biggest sin that Thomas Massie committed was he introduced legislation to try to force AIPAC to register as a foreign agent. Because, again, look how much power they have over both parties in this country. Both candidates in the 2024 election, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, got millions of dollars from AIPAC. You want to know why Kamala Harris couldn't and wouldn't come out against what Israel was doing, and which ended up costing her the election? When you look at the polling and stuff, how many people didn't vote for her just due on Gaza? Because she's married to her AIPAC handler. Her husband, Dougie, is basically an AIPAC stooge. And she received millions of dollars from him. Donald Trump has gotten hundreds of millions of dollars from AIPAC and Mario Adelson and all these other people to do whatever Israel says. And I think to really illustrate just how much there was a disparity in funding here, Thomas Massie, who again was a 7-time incumbent, had 1,500 donors from the state of Kentucky, which is like, okay, he's from Kentucky. Ed Galrain only had 70 donors from Kentucky. That's it. And still won. And still had millions and millions of dollars. That's why you hear Massie joking that he had to locate his opponent in Tel Aviv. He's basically saying Israel propped this man up and gave him, and their interest gave this man all this money that he used to beat me. And so, Massie, who is a very principled libertarian, has never been one of the people in Congress who is just a partisan hack. He has a specific libertarian ideology. I don't agree with it. I'm a leftist. Obviously, I don't care for it. I believe the government does and should do things. The rest of the world shows us every day that the government can and should do things. Just go tell the people of Norway and Finland and Denmark and Switzerland that the government shouldn't do anything for them. Go to Australia or any of those countries and say, hey, the government shouldn't do anything. You should just be on your own. And if you die, you die. You know. So I don't have a ideological common thought with Thomas Massie, but I will give him credit for being principled. And the Epstein files were a big part of it, and his coming out against the war in Iran. Both of these things were about benefiting Israel. Both parties are supporting in their own way this war in Iran and supporting Israel after blackmailing all of our politicians. I think a lot of them probably have been blackmailed by Israel. If you look at it, you also saw in Louisiana, Republican Senator Bill Cassidy was ousted in a primary. He was beaten by a Trump-backed candidate in Julia Letlow. Now, Cassidy was one of 7 Republican senators who voted to convict Trump after he was impeached in 2021. So Cassidy, another person who just on principle said what happened on January 6th was wrong. Trump had something to do with it. He should be convicted, and he's paying for it now. And so now, after Massie is lost, a lot of conservatives are literally calling for, they are like, MAGA is a, basically a lynch mob now, saying who's next. And they're pointing at one of Massie's fellow Kentuckians, and Rand Paul, who's one of the other few people in Congress who's relatively independent, and said that they're saying that, you're next. You're next. Rand Paul is just one Republican that Trump and the MAGA movement could be targeting in primaries in the near future. So just, once again, this is a very, very dangerous position that we are in now, where MAGA has gone from religion, where you still had some discourse, where you still had open disagreement, where you had different definitions even within the ideology of how that could be, how to be MAGA, how to be a Republican. Now, they have just devolved into a cult, and that could be dangerous, because as the consequences pile up from Donald Trump's failed policies, whether it's Iran or whether it's the tariffs that bankrupted all those farmers. Look, man, as the worst things get, people in the cult don't just say, oh, well, we were wrong. No, they double down. They triple down. And you're going to see some real, possibly gruesome stuff in the near future when these people's lives get more desperate, when a lot of people's lives get more desperate due to a lot of these awful policies of this government. And it's not going to be pretty. MAGA's fall is going to be swift and awful. And I think Donald Trump, I said at the beginning of the year, I don't think he's going to be alive. I don't think he's going to live through the year, or at least not be president. I think he's going to step down, or he's going to die. I don't think he's going to survive through the year. And all these people who are after him are going to have to live with the consequences of what he has done and what he's doing. We could see trials and tribunals for people like Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel. I think that's one of the reasons why Tulsi has just chosen to get out of town. Why she's stepping down. I could see RFK Jr. stepping down relatively soon. These are people who know. The guillotines are coming, folks. The guillotines are coming. But that's neither here nor there. All right, folks. It is 7:07 in the p.m., so you know what that means. It's time for some happy happies. Let's lighten the mood. It is Friday. It's nice outside. Memorial Day is on Monday. I ain't got to go to work. I ain't got to do nothing. Neither do a lot of you. So let's just have some fun. All right, shall we? Let's have some happy happies. We'll be right back after these here on Straight Out of the Cannon.